This ship is a time machine. It drills into the sea floor to extract sediment which has been slowly building up for millions of years. These sediment cores will take their place in a vast library. Here is a unique record of atmosphere and climate. Where the Vostok ice cores stretch back hundreds of thousands of years, this place can take scientists back hundreds of millions. In 1999, a young PhD student called Santo Baines came here in search of clues to what happened 55 million years ago. He was looking for one core in particular.
Okay, we're going for 690.
Of all the cores ever drilled, core 690 was reputed to have the most detailed record of the Paleocene-Eocene climate change event.
2 sections above and 2 sections below.
Santo took a sample of sediment every centimetre along core 690. Buried in the ooze at the bottom of the sea are the remains of tiny shelly sea creatures, the foraminifera, or forams for short. They had survived the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, but 55 million years ago, half the deep-water forams suddenly became extinct. Locked up in their shells are clues to what killed them. These shells were made from carbon dioxide dissolved in the sea, and their detailed composition reflects the temperature of the water and the level of CO2 in the atmosphere. In an Oxford laboratory, Santo dropped the tiny forams into acid, releasing carbon dioxide that had last seen the atmosphere 55 million years ago. Santo's analysis confirmed that when the mammals had shrunk, atmospheric carbon levels had suddenly risen sharply, causing a rapid warming of ocean waters. But as he examined more and more samples, something extraordinary emerged. There was not just one sudden rise in carbon and temperature, there were three.
Temperatures increased dramatically in a stepped way over only a few hundred years. This is something that nobody has ever seen in the geological record before. We're seeing 3 instantaneous increases in temperature of a few degrees, totaling up to a total increase of about 8 degrees Celsius or so, which is just something nobody expected to see from a time interval when the Earth was already about 5 to 7 degrees warmer than it is today.
The rise in atmospheric carbon was just as dramatic. The jumps in the graph add up to 1.5 trillion tons of it. Where had all this carbon come from?
Well, the only explanation to date that can really give an answer to this dramatic climate change and carbon dioxide change is that methane hydrates, which are substances in the sea floor, decomposed and bled very light carbon into the oceans and into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide and methane.
Methane hydrates are a huge store of carbon. They form on the seafloor from rotting organic matter washed down the world's rivers. Then, if the pressure on the seafloor is high enough or the temperature low enough, this methane mixes with water to form frozen deposits which can contain large amounts of the gas. When the ice melts, 170 times its volume of methane comes bubbling out. What's more, methane's warming effect is much greater than carbon dioxide's. The trouble is, the methane only remains locked up if the pressure at the seafloor stays high and the temperature stays low. If conditions change, it will quickly escape. "55 million years ago, the world's oceans were slowly warming, just as they are today.
We have evidence that from the middle of the Paleocene into the early Eocene, there was a slow warming trend for the entire globe. And it's possible that the oceans warmed to some sort of threshold temperature that allowed the release of methane hydrates from the sea floor. We don't just see one large release of methane hydrates. What we actually see is that they were released in 3 distinct episodes. And this suggests that one methane hydrate accumulation decomposed, bled carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which caused severe global warming. And this global warming rapidly caused the oceans to warm even more, which then caused further methane hydrate accumulations to decompose. So it was, if you like, a runaway greenhouse event.
Could a similar runaway catastrophe lie in wait for us, or our children? But this is not the future. Arctic waters have already started to warm. Already there are signs that methane hydrates are decomposing. This satellite image is thought to show a small plume of methane escaping from beneath the Arctic Ocean. If Peter Cox's model is right, by the end of the century, with the Amazon rainforest gone and its billions of tons of carbon in the atmosphere, temperatures around the Arctic Ocean could be 8 degrees higher. Under such conditions, it is hard to see how massive releases of methane could possibly be avoided. Such events would dwarf this accidental release when a small deposit was disturbed by drilling. 55 million years ago, spontaneous releases of carbon took global temperatures to a level perhaps 15 degrees higher than human beings have ever experienced. If those events were to be repeated, we do not know what of the world around us could survive such extreme conditions. Yet within 50 years, we could unwittingly have set in train a series of events which would make such a dangerous rise in temperatures inevitable.
What we're finding really in the model is that there is a critical threshold, and I'm fairly sure that exists, where the natural biosphere stops buffering us from the effects of our emissions and actually starts to amplify them. So you really want to avoid that, because suddenly then climate change occurs much more rapidly.
It's not far-fetched. The way they explain to me, I start to believe it's possible that we will have a massive crash of the system. We have all the elements here for that to happen. Like a body that is being abused too much, it dies. That could happen here, I think.
How does that make you feel?
Doomsday? I think if there is a spacecraft to Mars, I probably will be one of the passengers. This is going to become a really nasty place to live without the forest. Desert, isn't it?